our next guest is royal editor for The Mirror, Russell Myers. Russell, great to have you back with us. Now, look, there's been a little bit of a row over the last 24 hours or so about a letter Meghan Markle allegedly wrote to King Charles about racism and unconscious bias after the Oprah interview. What were the allegations? And after this back and forth, what seems to be the actual position?
Well, good evening. Well, you're right. I mean, it doesn't seem, we have 24 hours in royal land rather than there is a row. And we've got a scoop by the Telegraph here in the UK divulging information about this letter that Meghan had sent to Charles. Now, this is in a response to him sending her a letter. If you cast your mind back to about 2021, after Harry and Meghan did that explosive interview with Oprah Winfrey, and those allegations of racism within the royal family, Meghan said she pretty much had felt abandoned by the family and the institution, leading her to pretty much, wanting to take her own life. Things were that desperate. Now, the context of those discussions were apparently that Meghan had revealed the identity of the royal that they refused to name in those conversations, that had made derogatory comments, racist remarks about their unborn children. And, Meghan was certainly not satisfied. Now, I think it's very, very telling that this is sort of coming out now because we're leading up to the coronation. We don't know the source of this story, but one may wonder whether this has sort of been put out by the Sussex camp in order to try and smooth over the relationships between Meghan and the family, because there's been a lot of talk about why she hasn't attended the coronation. Of course, it's their son Archie's 4th birthday on the same day, May the 6th. But I think there's still a lot of questions that remain unanswered.
I think there really is, and you're absolutely right. This did happen in 2021. Obviously, it was alluded to in Harry's memoir, this particular issue, but I'm really quite shocked, or I'm not really quite sure why it's being raised now. Do you think it's got anything to do with the family in the UK?
So I think there's an awful lot of issues that have remained unresolved. I mean, we're talking about Harry's attendance at the coronation. That was certainly delayed. He was about 9-10 days late from getting that RSVP in. The seating arrangements were delayed because he hadn't confirmed his attendance. And now we know he is coming without Meghan. Now, as I said, I think she's got a perfect get out. She may have been wondering what the issues or the reception for her from the family and indeed the wider public would have been. But again, I think that there will be focus on Harry when he comes, and it would have been even more focus on Meghan. And we don't know what the relationship with Meghan and the family is at the moment. So I suppose it might be one for another day, because after her saying that she isn't going to come, I'm not too sure when to expect her back in the country.
Fair enough. And as we get closer to the coronation, we're only 2 weeks away now. There's been a poll out that's showing the popularity of William, Kate and Charles is soaring, but that's expected, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think Meghan and Harry have had a tough time of it recently. I mean, a lot of that is their own doing. I mean, they've been speaking, as we said, of Oprah Winfrey Netflix series. Harry's book has been pretty explosive. Nobody came off lightly at all. And we're seeing a bit more of the King, Queen Consort, Prince and Princess of Wales as well, the nation. I mean, I think it's pretty split, to be honest, because I think you're seeing a different poll every day about a lot of people are behind the coronation, behind the King. That sort of round of goodwill after the Queen's death has kind of been replicated to King Charles, but I definitely do think there is work to do. And, we are seeing a bit more of William and Kate over the last few weeks. So, listen, I think it'll be quite telling over the next few months about what work they are doing, how much we are seeing them, and, of course, how much we hear from Harry and Meghan, because there didn't seem to be a week or two gone by that we weren't talking about them, and there's sort of explosions at the royal family. So, I suppose let's wait and see over the next few months.
And you're right there. The flip side is that Harry and Meghan are increasingly less popular. But do you think that is to do with something in particular? To be fair, that things have been quieter on their end the last couple of weeks. Or do you think that that's a product of their lesser involvement in the coronation proceedings?
Well, of course. I mean, Harry had been told that he wouldn't have a role within the coronation, and the understanding is that the delay in his receipt of his invitation was due to be sorting out several issues. I mean, you look at the issues that he had to consider, the security that he and his family would have. He's still engaged in a high court battle here in the UK at the moment with the Home Office. Whether his children would have roles within the coronation. I mean, we're seeing Prince George as a page for Charles. We're seeing Camilla's grandchildren have roles as well. Would he feature on the balcony? I mean, Charles has taken that decision that only working roles would be. So, I mean, that sort of diminished role for him was obviously a concern. And who knows what we'll see over the next few weeks, because it does seem that they are trying to take their foot off the gas. But, I mean, like we said last year, it was just attack after attack after attack. And so, listen, I do think they will have to try and find their new role, as it were, within the royal family, because they've pretty much expunged all the interviews you could imagine, one would think.
You would think, but I keep being surprised, even when I think that there's nothing left. Now, we spoke last week about Harry and Charles, how they had their heart-to-heart. There's been reports this week there's a bit more in train to mend that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, again, Harry was obviously seeking reassurances and about what that would mean. Certainly his security, where would he be placed within any kind of seating plan? We know he's not going to be in the procession. Now, the reports are saying that he's homesick. He does miss his family, but I think we've seen that already. Certainly with the interviews that he was giving in the lead up to the publication of his book, he was saying, I want my father back, I want my brother back. But it's very hard to see how that marriage is up with his attitude. And that is the issue of doing these interviews, writing this book. And he must have known, surely, that his family would be absolutely devastated at these allegations and claims of their behaviour towards him and his wife. So I certainly think that we'll have to get the coronation out of the way. The family have that to really focus on. And the business for them is certainly not focusing on Harry. It's doing the job in hand. And then, maybe somewhere down the line, there'll be some method for reconciliation talks.
And look, I think you're right. I think they do need to get the coronation out of the way first. Do you think that Harry has finally, or perhaps come to realise that maybe some of his actions have contributed to the deterioration in the relationship?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I think we've asked that question many times, and only he will know. I mean, there's certainly talks from the US side that Harry was satisfied with the way that his book publicity round had gone. He was happy with everything that had been said within the book, and he must have known that there would have been a huge fallout from it. So, again, like you said, I think that the Royals have to concentrate on the job at hand at the moment, and that's getting May the 6th and the sort of bank holiday weekend of the coronation out the way. And then we'll obviously see what they're going to do in the future. And whether that does involve reconciliation with talks with Harry remains to be seen. I mean, certainly the mood music from the palace is that the king is very happy, he's delighted that Harry is going to come. Whether they would have accepted Meghan, I'm sure that they would have done, because they did during the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. She was here for the Queen's funeral, but I think it's quite telling that it'll be a quick trip for Harry. It'll be in and out. He won't stay and celebrate over the weekend with the rest of the family.
And so we know he is coming to the coronation, and he has asked for a few things. Some things he'll get and some things he won't. Where are those negotiations up to?
Well, one may consider that they are at least in part concluded, because he has said that he's going to come. But I think one of the big issues, as I said earlier, was that this court case with the British government about the decision to take his security away is still rumbling on in the background. Now, we've seen him attending court over the last few weeks. He's got several court cases going on at the moment. And I think that for him personally, he will just want to come, support his father, and then make a sort of swift exit afterwards. And those conversations will have to happen for another day. He's already said he's had multiple attempts, it seems, of trying to talk to his father and his brother, and they've sort of fallen flat. So I think for his part, the family want to see him not carrying on doing these interviews and attacking the rest of the family. They know where he stands, and so it's very much a case of them coming together at a later date.
And it's recently been reported that Camilla is likely to be a bit nervous about the upcoming coronation and that her ex-husband, Andrew Parker-Bowles, will also be there. Now, she's spent a long time in public life. Is it a surprise to you that she's nervous? And what are your thoughts on Andrew attending?
Well, I'm not surprised at Camilla. I mean, it's going to be a huge event. You know, talking about hundreds of millions of people watching this around the world. I did a story last week just about how the planning was still pretty. You know, there's lots of tension within the planning because they'd only had one rehearsal. That was timed and went significantly over. I mean, we've seen there's an awful lot to prepare. There's been sort of dawn rehearsals on the streets of London for all the thousands and thousands of armed personnel that are going to take place. And no doubt she's nervous, but I'm sure it'll be all right on the night, as they say. So Andrew Parker-Bowles attending as well. I think that shows you another demonstration of a blended family. We've seen that Prince George is going to have a part, and certainly Camilla's grandchildren as well. And these two families coming together to try and support each other. So I didn't think that was too much of a surprise. Now, we still don't know where Prince Andrew will fit in. Obviously, he won't be in the procession. He's not a working royal. We won't see him on the balcony. But certainly, where will he be sat? We've seen him bit more front and centre over the last few weeks, attending church with the royal family at Easter Sunday. He was right behind the King and Queen and striding alongside his sister. So, you know, I think there will be a few raised eyebrows if he has a larger role to play, and I suppose we'll just have to wait and see.
Still on Camilla, we've discussed on this show a few times that underlying rancour about Camilla taking the title of Queen instead of Queen Consort. That hasn't quietened down, has it?
Well, no, again, he's talking a lot about polls over the last few weeks, and it's whether to trust the pollsters on anything. I'm not too sure they get most right. However, certainly I think it has been a remarkable shift for Camilla. It's been a PR masterclass, because you look at what she's had to contend with. Certainly in her early royal life, she was really public enemy number one, that people didn't think that Charles should have married her. I think we look at Harry's book, and he says himself that both he and Prince William begged their father not to marry Camilla. And then he did, and it was all about her sort of rehabilitating her public image. And I suppose she has done that remarkably well. She's rolled her sleeves up, she's got on with the job, she's understood what royal life is about, and that should be applauded, because she's brought really taboo subjects to the top of the agenda. Looking at royals speaking about domestic violence would have been unheard of just a few years ago, and she's really made some huge strides in that arena. She's done fantastically well looking at children's literacy in particular, and I think that when you look at the overall picture, she is a tremendous ambassador for the royal family, and she does make Charles happy. So I think there's a lot for her to be happy about.
I totally agree with you. And look, I know Camilla was controversial in the past, or has been controversial, but she has played a faultless long game. She has been excellent for such a long time. Look, Russell Myers, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we will speak with you again shortly.
My pleasure. Thank you.